What if I told you that beneath the silent stare of Easter Island's stone giants, something has just awakened? For centuries, the Moai statues have faced the horizon like eternal sentinels, witnesses to storms, time, and legend. But recently, one of them broke its silence. In early 2023, as the island's ancient crater lake began to dry under an unrelenting sun, archaeologists saw something rise from the mud, the unmistakable head of a Moai statue, staring up from beneath centuries of sediment, a statue no one, not even the island's oldest elders, ever knew existed. And that discovery changed everything. Because if a Moai could hide under a lake for hundreds of years, what else could be buried beneath this volcanic island? What forgotten stories lie sealed in the ground, waiting for the world to notice? This is not just another tale of archaeology. It's a story of a civilization that refused to be forgotten, of a people whose genius, faith, and mystery are only now being understood. From ancient engineering that made stone giants walk, to new DNA and radar evidence suggesting Easter Island was never truly isolated. The truth may rewrite everything we thought we knew about human history. Stay with us, because in the next few minutes, we're diving beneath the surface of Rapa Nui itself, where the earth still remembers, and the past is beginning to breathe again, for generations. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, as its people call it, has stood in the middle of the Pacific like a whisper from another age, more than 2,000 miles from the nearest continent. It's one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth. Yet from this isolation rose one of humanity's most haunting legacies, the Moai, nearly 1,000 monumental stone statues carved with long faces, deep eyes, and silent gazes turned inland, toward their ancestors. But in 2020, that silence broke. During a season of record drought, the volcanic crater known as Rano Raraku, the sacred quarry where most of the Moai were carved, began to dry. The water level of its crater lake dropped further than anyone could remember. What had long been a mirror of reeds and mud suddenly revealed something extraordinary. A familiar shape emerging from the cracked sediment. At first, archaeologists thought it was a trick of erosion, a random rock carved by time. But as the team from the indigenous Moai Nui community and collaborating scientists carefully brushed away layers of compacted earth, they saw the truth, the unmistakable contours of a Moai's face. The statue measured roughly 1.6 meters tall, smaller than the giants scattered across the island. But its location was shocking. Never before had a Moai been found inside the lake itself, for decades. Researchers believed the lakebed contained nothing but silt. Yet here was a carved guardian, sleeping beneath its surface for centuries. Dr. Terry Hunt, one of the leading archaeologists specializing in Rapa Nui, called the find an incredible gift from nature. The drying of the lake, he explained, had created a once-in-a-lifetime window into a part of the island that had remained untouched for generations. But even more surprising was what came next. The reaction of Rapa Nui's elders. Salvador Atanhito, vice president of the Moai Nui community, said in disbelief, "Even our ancestors did not know this existed. It's as if the island decided to reveal something it wanted to keep for itself." That single statement sent shivers through the archaeological world. If the island had kept one statue hidden for centuries, how many others might still lie beneath the mud, under the hills, or even below the ocean's edge? Soil analysis around the newly found statue revealed layers of volcanic ash mixed with ancient plant matter, suggesting that the area might once have been dry land, perhaps even walkable, before centuries of rainfall filled the crater. That meant the Moai might have been carved or placed there when the basin was still open ground. Over time, nature buried it, preserving it like a time capsule in the mud. Was this statue deliberately submerged as part of a ritual, a symbolic offering to the gods of water or fertility? Or was it abandoned during carving and later swallowed by rising waters? No one can yet say for sure. But one thing is clear. This wasn't just a statue. It was a message from a lost world. A reminder that the island still holds secrets it isn't ready to give up. As archaeologists scanned the area, radar images revealed more anomalies beneath the lake, faint echoes suggesting the presence of other buried objects, perhaps more statues waiting to be unearthed. And suddenly, the world realized Easter Island, once thought to have given up all its mysteries, had only just begun to speak again. The discovery in Rano Iraku's crater lake was only the beginning. Once archaeologists realized that entire statues could remain hidden beneath layers of volcanic soil, they began to wonder what else lay buried under the island's rugged skin. This time, instead of relying on shovels and brushes, they turned to technology that could see through the Earth itself, using a combination of ground-penetrating radar (GPR), LiDAR scanning, and magnetometers. Teams from Chilean and international universities began mapping Easter Island in ways never before possible. These instruments sent electromagnetic pulses deep into the volcanic crust, creating high-resolution images of what lay below without disturbing a single grain of soil. And what they saw was astonishing. Beneath the familiar fields of grass and stone, radar scans revealed dense shapes and geometric voids, patterns that didn't match natural formations. In some places, the outlines resembled the torsos of Moai statues buried meters below the surface. In others, long rectangular cavities hinted at something even stranger. Man-made chambers aligned with precision, as if part of an underground network carved deliberately into the earth. At first, some archaeologists dismissed these as geological anomalies, but repeated scans confirmed their symmetry and placement, suggesting that human hands had once shaped what now lay entombed beneath centuries of ash and sediment. The implications were staggering. For decades, most people assumed the visible moai, the heads and shoulders rising from the ground, were just partial statues, unfinished or half-buried by erosion. But new scans showed that nearly all of them were complete figures, with full torsos, hands, and even intricate carvings etched onto their backs. Early 20th century excavations had hinted at this, but now technology revealed that the phenomenon was far more widespread than anyone had imagined. Hundreds of statues may still lie completely buried, toppled or intentionally covered during ritual phases. Some experts believe these statues weren't victims of time. They were placed there deliberately, as part of a spiritual return to the earth. This theory connects to Polynesian cosmology, where the world is divided into two realms, the upper world of light and the underworld of ancestors. To the Rapa Nui, burial wasn't abandonment, it was reverence. The Moai represented deified ancestors, and to return them to the soil was to complete a sacred cycle, from creation to rest, from earth to eternity. If that's true, then the buried Moai aren't forgotten relics, they're spiritual guardians, intentionally hidden to watch over the island's soul from below. But not everyone agrees. Some scientists argue the burial was purely geological, the result of rain, erosion, and centuries of sediment slowly swallowing the statues. The earth, they say, wasn't a temple, it was simply relentless. Yet even the skeptics admit that what lies underground is precious. The sediment layers around buried Moai have preserved pollen, charcoal, and ancient tools, acting like natural time capsules. These traces allow researchers to reconstruct what the island looked like centuries ago, its forests, crops, and climate, revealing that Rapa Nui's story was not one of destruction, but of adaptation. The more they dig, or rather, the more they see without digging, the clearer it becomes that Easter Island was never a static monument field. It was, and still is, a living archaeological landscape, where each buried Moai marks not the end of a civilization, but its continuing heartbeat. And as the ground gives up its whispers, a deeper realization is emerging. Rapa Nui may have been far more connected to the world and to the heavens than we ever imagined. For decades, the story of Easter Island was told as a cautionary tale, a civilization that flourished in isolation, rose to greatness, and then destroyed itself through greed and deforestation. Textbooks portrayed the Rapa Nui people as victims of their own ambition, toppling their forests to move their Moai until nothing was left. The island, they said, was a symbol of environmental collapse, a lonely echo of human folly. But that story, as it turns out, is only half true. The latest research, from DNA studies to linguistic analysis and architectural comparisons, paints a radically different picture. rather than a dying outpost cut off from the world. Easter Island may have been a cultural hub, a node in a vast oceanic network connecting Polynesian societies across thousands of miles of open water. For most of the 20th century, scholars assumed that Rapa Nui's extreme remoteness made sustained contact impossible. Yet the Polynesians were extraordinary navigators, explorers who sailed from island to island, guided only by stars, wind patterns, and the rhythm of the waves. They settled nearly every habitable island in the Pacific long before European ships ever appeared on the horizon. So why not Easter Island? Recent archaeological comparisons between Rapa Nui and other Polynesian islands, such as Tahiti, the Marquesas, and Mangareva, reveal striking parallels in temple designs, ceremonial architecture, and even the shape of stone platforms known as ahu. A 24 study from Uppsala University suggested that some of these ritual complexes on Easter Island may have been older than similar sites elsewhere, meaning Rapa Nui may have influenced Polynesian culture, not just received it. That idea turns the old map upside down. Instead of being the farthest edge of civilization, Easter Island might have been a creative frontier, sending ideas back across the waves. Even more intriguing is the emerging genetic evidence. Ancient DNA extracted from skeletal remains shows faint but measurable traces of contact with both South American and other Polynesian populations. While some scientists remain cautious, others argue it suggests at least intermittent voyaging and exchange, proof that Rapa Nui was never truly alone. And the clues don't stop there. Linguistic studies show subtle borrowings between Rapa Nui's language and that of other island groups, especially Mangareva and the Marquesas. Shared religious terms, carving styles, and construction techniques suggest a steady exchange of ideas. Even if infrequent, the result is a completely different image of Rapa Nui's people, not isolated victims of ecological collapse, but oceanic innovators, skilled navigators, and thinkers who stayed connected to the wider Polynesian world. Even some of the island's artifacts challenge the old narrative. A few tools found on Easter Island are made of basalt not native to the island, possibly imported from Pitcairn or Mangareva. These may be the remnants of exchange voyages, small but powerful reminders that Rapa Nui was linked by invisible maritime highways of knowledge and faith. When viewed this way, the island's so-called collapse begins to look less like a self-inflicted disaster and more like a transformation, a civilization adapting to changing climates, shifting resources, and outside pressures. The Moai, rather than symbols of downfall, become monuments of endurance, testaments to a people who found beauty and meaning even as the world around them changed. And in that realization lies something profound. The story of Easter Island isn't about isolation at all. It's about connection to ancestors, to the ocean, and perhaps to us. Because if an island at the edge of the world could reach across 2,000 miles of open sea, what limits have we placed on our own understanding of human ingenuity? Among all the riddles of Easter Island, one question has haunted explorers, scientists, and dreamers alike. How did they move them? Each Moai statue can weigh anywhere from 10 to over 80 tons, with some unfinished giants in the quarries estimated at more than 160 tons. The island had no beasts of burden, no advanced tools, and no tall trees left to make massive rollers. And yet, somehow, these colossal figures were transported miles across volcanic slopes and set upright on stone platforms facing the villages they were meant to protect. For years, the answers came in theories that ranged from clever to absurd, from wooden sledges and log rollers to alien intervention. But for the Rapa Nui people, the mystery was never really a mystery at all. Their legends had preserved a single, consistent phrase: the statues walked. To early Western archaeologists, this sounded poetic, even mythical, a metaphor for divine power. But in the 1980s, two researchers, Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo, decided to take that oral history seriously. What if walking wasn't symbolic at all? What if it described the actual method by which the statues were moved? Their hypothesis was radical and beautifully simple. The Moai, with their tilted torsos and low centers of gravity, weren't just designed for beauty, They were designed for motion. The wide bellies and slightly forward-leaning stances acted like natural pivots, allowing the statues to rock side to side. So, in 2012, the researchers built a full-scale replica of a Moai, carved from the same type of volcanic tuff as the originals, using only ropes, human strength, and coordination. They tied 3 teams to the statue, one on each side and one behind. Then, like a ritual dance, they pulled in rhythm, chanting as they moved. To their astonishment, the statue walked. It swayed forward step by step, upright and balanced, its weight shifting just as the legends described. Each movement was deliberate, almost alive. The test proved that the Rapa Nui didn't need wooden rollers or alien technology, only physics, intelligence, and teamwork. The statue's very shapes contained the secret of their movement. This revelation transformed the Moai from symbols of mystery into symbols of human genius. It showed that the people of Rapa Nui were not victims of their own ambition, but masters of design and harmony, capable of orchestrating dozens of individuals in perfect rhythm. It also cast doubt on the long-held ecocide theory, the idea that the island's trees were destroyed to move the Moai. New pollen studies show that deforestation on Rapa Nui was gradual, caused by a mix of climate change, soil erosion, and agricultural shifts, not reckless statue transport. So, the Moai didn't destroy the island. They may have preserved it, binding the community in a shared act of faith and engineering that gave their society purpose. When you imagine it now, hundreds of islanders chanting under the stars, guiding a 10-ton ancestor across the slopes by sheer unity and rhythm, the scene feels less like labor and more like liturgy. The statues didn't just walk, they were walked by a people whose spirit made stone come alive. And perhaps that's the deeper secret of Easter Island. Not how the Moai were moved, but why they were moved, as living embodiments of memory, love, and reverence for those who came before, for centuries. Easter Island stood like a warning, a story told through stone about the cost of human pride. But today, that story is being rewritten. What we once called a tragedy now looks more like a triumph. The triumph of a small, resilient people who carved eternity out of volcanic rock and trusted the ocean to carry their story beyond the horizon. The discovery of a Moai beneath the crater lake was not just an archaeological surprise. It was a reminder that the earth itself can remember. And sometimes, it chooses to whisper back. Beneath the soil, beneath the myths, lies a civilization that never truly vanished. It adapted, it survived, and it left behind messages we're only beginning to understand. The new technologies that can see through the ground are giving voice to the past, revealing not ruins, but rhythms. Each buried statue, each hidden chamber, each faint radar echo is a heartbeat of a culture that saw no division between the sacred and the scientific, between the sky and the sea. And when we look at those stone faces today, the silent guardians of Rapa Nui, we no longer see a mystery frozen in time. We see ourselves, our desire to be remembered, to build something that outlasts us, to connect with forces greater than our own. The Moai don't stare toward the ocean by accident. They face inward, toward the people, toward the living. It's as if they're still watching, reminding us that what we build, what we believe, and how we treat our world will one day become the stones that tell our story. So the next time you see a picture of Easter Island, don't think of isolation or collapse. Think of continuity. Think of ingenuity. Think of a people who could make stone walk, and perhaps make the dead speak again. Because beneath every monument, beneath every mystery, the past is never silent. It's only waiting for us to listen.